Hello, welcome to Key Nero Diaries on the 17th of October. Thanks for those who watched my last video about the Kia EV3. I really appreciate the comments. I may have mentioned before that in my working life I used to do a lot of forecasting for new products, product sales, and in fact in the last sort of 6 years of working. I was an industry analyst in the telecoms industry. So I'd like to sort of have a bit of a go on what I think will happen, certainly in the French car market in 2025. Now, it's the Paris Motor Show this week, and it's been discussed on French TV here. In fact, yesterday evening on France 24, there was a debate about it, and of course, it's all to do with the problems that the European industry is having. Volkswagen talking about closing plants. They've gone from making a lot of money in China to losing money in China, where apparently they have 39 factories in China. Apparently, they don't all make cars. There's a lot in the supply chain there, component parts. But China has been a bit of a cash cow for them, and of course that's rapidly going away as Chinese buyers are tending towards buying electric vehicles and their own homemade brands, of course. And they admit on this debate that the Chinese are ahead in battery technology, they're ahead in the design of electric vehicles, and being able to make them profitably. So. What about France then? Well, of course, the big news this week is that France has shown the Renault 4 electric, which is going to go into production apparently early next year. And we already have the Renault 5 electric and the Citroen EC3, which went on sale last month. And both of those got off to a pretty good start. Of course, we know that the EV haters, you can very easily find videos where they're saying, "Oh, the electric car market's all come to an end. It's nobody wants them. Sales are falling." Now that's not true. Globally, EV sales so far this year are up by 20%, and okay, a lot of that is to do with continuing growth in China, where I think we're up to 1 in every 2 cars sold is either a battery electric or a plug-in hybrid. But actually, in France so far this year, it's been pretty steady. In the first 9 months of the year, battery electric vehicles, I'm not including plug-in hybrids here, have taken 17% of the new car market. Now, as I've shown before in a previous video where I looked at how quickly electric vehicles are replacing fossil fuel vehicles, what I did to get to the conclusions there was to say, well, let's look at new car sales in France over the last 9-10 years, and let's look at the growth in the car population. And then, of course, the difference between the total new car sales and the increase in population is the number of cars that get scrapped. So you then end up with an average scrappage rate per year for the cars. But in terms of sales, since 2015, obviously new car sales go up and down with the state of the economy. And since 2015, new car sales in France have been as high as 2.2 million in 2019 and as low as 1.53 million in 2022. But they picked up a bit last year, 1.77 million. And say over the last sort of 8-9 years, new car sales in France have averaged at 1.89 million. Now, last year, 298,500 battery electric vehicles were sold, and we're certainly on track this year to go over that 300,000 mark. And I think with the new models that have come out in the last few months, I think we're going to end up with about 310,000 electric vehicles, new electric vehicles sold in France this year. But what about next year? Well, we know that the French like to buy French cars, and we're now looking at the Citroen EC3, which is a small car. It's being priced. The electric version is about 22,000 euros. There's the lovely Renault 5, of course, which, it looks great out, and I think next year we'll see, those sales ramp up steadily. And then, of course, there's the Renault 4, which is a sort of a harking back to the sort of 60s and 70s, this very kind of small utilitarian looking car, which certainly seems to be getting a lot of praise from the motoring journalists. So next year we'll have those three small, relatively cheap. No new cars are cheap these days, let alone whether you're talking petrol or electric. But I think next year those three cars alone are going to sell 150,000 units between them in France, and there's no reason to suspect that all the other vehicles that have been selling, obviously the Teslas, the Kias, the Hyundai Kona, the Volvo EX30 is doing quite well here, and of course by next year the production will be coming not out of China but out of Belgium, so it will qualify as a European car. And we don't know yet exactly what incentives there will be in France. At the moment, if you buy a new EV here, you'll get €4,000 as an ecological bonus. And the other scheme that France does is that if you are a low income family and you can't use public transport to get to work, and you do, I think it's more than 18, 19 kilometers a day commute, you can get a very, very good deal. No down payment, and you can get something like Citroen EC3 or a Renault 4, Renault 5 for €100 a month. Well, some people are spending more than that a month on fuel, not to mention the cost of keeping an old petrol or diesel car on the road. This year, that scheme started, and the take-up was already sold by the end of January. I think 50,000 electric vehicles were sold through that scheme. The scheme's going to be expanded next year, although it depends a lot on how the French budget works out with the new government we've got here. But certainly it was very popular, and they're talking about doubling that. So, we could see a lot of sort of small cars, small electric vehicles getting onto the road through that scheme. So I'm sticking my neck out here. I'm saying that next year, electric vehicle, that's battery electric vehicle sales in France will go from about 310,000 this year to 450,000. That would make it about 23% of all new car sales, based on an average of 1.89 million new cars sold every year. So there we go. I've made my predictions. I could be very wrong, but I think this whole thing of, electric vehicles, it's all slowed down. The growth was very fast back in 2021, 22 and 23, and this year the growth is not so dynamic. But it's going to not happen in 5 minutes, and I think the transition from fossil fuel cars to electric cars is inevitable. But that story, when it's written in the future, will not be one continuous smooth story of just a sort of a linear growth. It'll go in fits and starts, and I think we're about to open another chapter on that growth story with a lot more cars, a lot more choice, and prices are coming down. Obviously the Kia EV3 is just one of those cars, but I think certainly here in France, say the French like to buy French cars, and they like to buy smaller cars. You see, Renault Clios and Citroen, Peugeot 208s, Citroen EC3s. That kind of size of car has always sold very well here in France, and there's no reason to suspect that that size of electric car won't sell well. So anyway, 450,000 sales in France next year. See how it goes. The Kia Niro is still plodding away, just coming up to 110,000 kilometres on the clock now. But not really any big journeys planned at the moment. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. If you do, please, do the usual, tick a like, and better still subscribe. Thanks very much. Until the next time.